Sergeant and Mrs. Smith, you're going to love this house.
Is that a tub in the kitchen?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
The Summer Olympics are back in 2024, as the 33rd Olympiad will take place in Paris, France, July 26th to August 11th. While we at the Great Pop Culture Debate might not generally be super into sports, we love the Olympics. As part of our 2024 summer specials, we're doing an episode devoted to the pageantry, the display of peak human abilities, and most importantly, the barely conceived muscles. Join us as we discuss the best Summer Olympic sporting event. I will take your racket to your shuttlecock, but it will cost extra. I'm your host, Eric Rezsnyak. Please help me welcome my pop culture debate Olympians. Our first panelist has been practicing a pike position his entire life to prepare for tonight's debate. It's Bob Erlenback.
My hips and my legs are very limber, and I am ready for entry.
Someone find Tom Daly. He's a 3-time gold medalist in being a badass bitch. It's Curtis Creekmore.
Sadly, I think this will be my last bitch Olympics, Eric. My body just can't put up with the strain of being such a badass bitch anymore.
Well, I will tell you that you're going to get tens across the door from this Hungarian judge. And finally, she's never been mistaken for a runner, but she's an expert marathoner. It's Joelle Boedecker.
Watching 12 hours of Olympics per day for 2 weeks is marathoning, right?
I mean, it's the closest I'm ever going to get, so we're going to go with it. If you're curious about how we ended up with this Sporty 16, become a Patreon supporter of the podcast, and don't forget that you can head to greatpopculturedebate.com and find the listener bracket for this episode so you can play along with us at home. Also, a quick note for context. We are, none of us, sports experts. We are discussing the Olympics from a pop culture lens as a form of entertainment. And considering this panel is mostly gay men, that will sometimes skew toward full-on objectification of the male athletes. But we want to state that we respect the athleticism of every participant in the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and this episode should be viewed as a light bit of ribaldry for an event soaked in pomp and pageantry. And with that out of the way, let's light the torch, I am, of course, perpetually flaming, and kick off these debates. First up, it's unanimous victory for gymnastics, which meant that, sorry hookers, rugby was tackled in round 1. I believe at least 3 members of this panel would be happy to comfort rugby players and their fans with some loose head. Yes, both hooker and loose head are actual rugby terms and also appropriate descriptors for at least one member of this panel. Next, the majority of the panel wants volleyball to advance to round 2, but Bob is holding his breath that artistic swimming, aka synchronized swimming, can emerge victorious. Bob, plug your nose and make a splash for artistic swimming. Joelle, set up volleyball for success. Bob, please go first.
Okay, so when we're talking about artistic swimming, or synchronized swimming, as I will commonly call it, I know I'm probably not going to win, but I want to talk quickly first about really like how I approached this and why I'm on the side of artistic swimming. And when I thought about these events and these sports, I'm not a big sports person, but I really enjoy the Olympics. And the reason that I like the Olympics is because so much of what they do is very televised, very produced, very storytelling. And I love big production when it comes to the Olympics. And I think if there's drama involved, if it's entertaining, if it's exciting, it's something that I can't see more commonly or more often. And this is absolutely a sport that fits that bill. It's a choreographed dance in the water. And if you know anything about me, my favorite part of She's All That is the choreographed dance number at the prom.
It's true.
So anytime you give me a choreographed dance number, it's something special. And it is amazing what these athletes can do. The amount of time they can spend under the water not breathing is incredible. It is a feat of a miraculous feat that you can't see every day. I think it's incredible. I think the athletes are incredible that do this sport. And I think it kind of fits that kind of very entertaining, very drama-filled, very exciting thing to watch on television. Volleyball is very exciting, but it is kind of just over the ball, back over the net, back and forth. There really isn't a lot of choreography going on. So that's why I lean towards synchronized swimming. And they're introducing men, or they did introduce men, or this year maybe even, but they're going to have men's synchronized swimming as well.
Oh my God, I can't wait to see that. The legs, honey, the legs. Joelle, talk to me about volleyball.
I was actually just about to say that I think artistic swimming is one of the only, if the only, like women only event at the Olympics. But hey, I'm glad that they're finally letting men in, because that is the opposite of every other sport in
Right.
the history of the Olympics. So volleyball. It turns out that volleyball is not just indoor volleyball; it also includes beach volleyball. And I was sitting around preparing for indoor volleyball and getting very bored. And then I remembered beach volleyball is included. And that is what I'm going to focus on, because everyone knows indoor volleyball. Y'all had to play it at some point at gym class. Maybe you hated it. Maybe you were tall and didn't hate it. But I certainly hated it. I couldn't jump and I was short. Beach volleyball, I have no business playing that either, but it is fun to watch, especially at the Olympics. One of my favorite things about beach volleyball at the Olympics is that they always make sure that those courts are in really cool places. Like they did it in the Royal Palace Guard in London, for example. But like in Rio, it was like right there on the beach with the beautiful shoreline behind them. It's always pretty. It's always amazing to watch these very well-fit people sweating, getting sand all over their bodies, high-fiving in midair, wearing silly visors and glasses and barely any clothing. But even more importantly, it is just exciting. Like, take tennis, but make it more exciting. Take volleyball, but make it more exciting. That's beach volleyball. It is one of the most popular sports for people that are visiting the Olympics and want to go see something. It's one of the premier hot tickets that it's impossible to get. And the other thing is that US dominates the heck out of that one over the many years. If you don't know the names of Misty May Trainor and Carrie Walsh Jennings, you haven't watched beach volleyball, so that's fine for you. I am obsessed with those two amazing women, and one of them, I think it's Carrie Walsh, is still playing, even though the two of them split up. She is incredible. They are incredible, and I just, it's hard to not love the sport.
Awesome. Curtis, where are you on this one?
I'm excited for this one because I have decided to throw out whatever I voted for going into it, because I just want to be convinced based on what everybody else is saying. I think I voted for volleyball. I'm going to stick with volleyball this time based on what Joelle said. It is very much back and forth, but beach volleyball, I think, has to be one of the more difficult things to do because it's just two people covering an entire side of a court in sand. That's really tough. And I enjoy it as well. So I'm going to vote for volleyball.
Bob, I love watching synchronized, aka artistic swimming. The Esther Williams fantasy of it all, it moves me. It is gay, and that's before they even brought the men into it. But if I'm like, what of these sports do I actually watching routinely? I'll watch a few minutes of artistic swimming, but I watch hours of beach volleyball, men and women, and I mean. Who name a artistic swimming star that's come out of the Olympics? I cannot do it. I can name actual beach volleyball stars that came out of the Olympics.
That's because all of you people refuse to watch synchronized swimming because you're terrible. That's why we don't know these. We don't know these people. We don't know these celebrities. They should be. Anyway,
you're not wrong.
I'm going to vote for volleyball.
Okay, great. So we will be moving volleyball into round 2. Next, it's another unanimous victory for rowing, which had all the right strokes to cruise past basketball. And I'm just going to say this. I don't care about basketball when it's not the Olympics. I surely do not care about basketball when I can watch fencing or judo or gymnastics and any other wild competition on the planet. Basketball, the heterosexuality of it all. Sorry, Joelle. Anyway.
Well, can I just say yes to all of that? But women's basketball breaks that a bit, and it's also just better. It is better to watch women's basketball.
One of the things I said during my argument was it's things that you can't commonly see is what I get to see on the Olympics. And I don't even watch basketball, but I see more basketball than I ever wanted to see in my life. So
it's on all the time. I feel like basketball is always on my television and I'm never looking for basketball. Literally at no time am I looking for it. So I take your point about women's basketball. That is a great element to it. But at the same time, rowing, well, when the hell else am I seeing that? So we're moving rowing into round 2. Next, the panel is evenly split between hurdles and tennis. Curtis, show tennis some love and move it into round 2. I will leap to the defense of hurdles. Curtis, please go first.
I could easily be swayed here. As I mentioned in our warm-up episode, I was really bummed that most of the track and field events, like the sprinting events, didn't make the bracket. And those are some of the most interesting to me. Hurdles is a strange one to see make the final 16, but I digress. Tennis is a world-dominating sport. And kind of going along what you all said, like you get to see tennis all the time. You get to see a ton of these big names playing in tournaments throughout the year, but it seems to become much more personal for the Olympics. During the year, they're playing for themselves. During the Olympics, they are playing for you. And I love that about the Olympics. It is a very patriotic time for me. I feel so much more proud of who we are as a country and seeing us succeed. And I can't help but think that a lot of people feel the same way. Like you're finally on a big team that is doing well for once. I enjoy watching tennis. I think that there's drama, there's personalities, and it's also a very challenging sport. Some huge names come out for the Olympics. So yeah, I'm gonna go tennis.
I love tennis. I'm not in any way speaking badly about it. I can't play tennis. Every time I touch the ball, it flies out of the court. I'm just so strong and butch. I just don't know what to do. You know, it's a curse. So let's talk about my rubric for this episode. I have 3 specific things, and I'm going to talk about each one of them for my arguments. Number 1 is the history of the sport. Number 2 is the uniqueness to the Olympics, as Bob mentioned. And then number 3 is memorable Olympic moments or memorable, notable Olympians coming out of that sport. So with hurdling has been contested at every modern Olympics since the first in Athens in 1896. Distances for the event range from 110 meters for men / 100 meters for women. That feels like bullshit. Up to 400 meters. The general height of a hurdle is 1.067 meters. Years of dating gay men have corrupted my sense of inches and meters, but that converts to 3.5 feet. These athletes are sprinting and jumping numerous obstacles the size of a grade schooler. That's impressive. So, uniqueness to Olympics. Track and field is part of high school and collegiate sports, certainly, but how often do you see it on TV? Not much outside of ESPN 8 The Ocho, I would wager. How often do people pay attention to hurdling? Basically only the Olympics. Memorable Olympic moments / Olympians. Lolo Jones stumbling on hurdle 8 of 10 in the final of the 2008 Beijing Games, costing her a gold medal most people thought she would win. Americans Brianna Rollins, Nia Ali, and Christy Caslin sweeping the podium for the 100-meter event at the 2016 Games. The current men's world record for the 110 meters was set 20 years ago by China's Lu Zhang, running it in 12.91 seconds. That was China's first ever male track and field gold. That's a pretty cool story, and we still have that record 20 years later. So there are moments with hurdling that I'm not sure we get from Olympic tennis. Joelle, where are you on this one?
It's tough. I generally don't watch tennis during the Olympics. I follow it as like who won? But I don't actually watch the games. Hurdles, I watch kind of in the same way. I'm like, oh, who won? But you can watch it. You can actually watch right through, see the best play, best move, see if someone fell. That's always kind of a weird, fun, but not fun Schadenfreude moment. I think hurdles is ultimately more exciting for me because it's a running sport. It is like show those muscles as they go right over that hurdle. There have been some incredible women that have played hurdles run hurdles. Also incredible women that played tennis. I don't know where to go with that. I think I'm with hurdles. I don't know. I could still be swayed though.
Okay, Bob, do you have a hard answer here?
I'm with hurdles. We have Wimbledon for tennis, which is, the event that is for tennis. I find tennis a little boring. With hurdles and some of the running events, I can tune in and see a couple races where I got to sit. I like the potpourri of the Olympics where I'm able to drop in on this and drop in on that, where I have to watch a whole game of tennis, which could take a while, where I could watch multiple races or switch to another network that's airing other components of the Olympics. So I like that about it. And I just think that hurdles to me has a more accessibility to everyone who can play, who can participate. And I don't know as though tennis offers that same level of accessibility. So hurdles.
Scoring alone in tennis is as confusing as possible. I've never figured it out to this day. I relearn every time I watch Wimbledon or the Olympics, and then I forget the next time.
Yeah. I just want to make it very clear. I could never in my life jump a hurdle. Like literally never. It would never happen.
No, same.
So I believe I have Bob on hurdles. Joelle, you were kind of in the mix here. And Curtis, are you sticking with tennis?
No. So
Oh,
I'm going to
shoot.
switch my vote and make it a whole lot easier.
I'm still with hurdles, I think, too. So
All right, so we're going to move hurdles into round 2. Next, it's another unanimous victory, this time for swimming, which lapped its competitor softball. But Curtis wanted to toss some underhanded compliments to softball first. Curtis, take it away.
Finally, one I care about. As an avid softball player and unofficial lesbian myself, I wanted to at least have the chance to talk about it before it rightfully goes out to swimming. Softball was introduced at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. It was removed from the program for 2012 and then 2016, but was added for a one-off appearance along with baseball for the 2020, which actually happened in 2021. So it's had like an in and out kind of thing. Softball will not be included in the Paris Games this year, but it is expected to make a return in 2028 for the Los Angeles Olympics due to the popularity of softball in the States. Out of the 5 times that softball has been in the Olympics, the U.S. has never not been on the medal stand, winning the first 3 gold medals and then earning silver in the last 2 appearances. Softball's hard. It is very different from baseball. The fences are shorter, so is the distance between the mound and the plate. At Olympic levels, pitchers can reach speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour, which is about 62 miles an hour, but they're typically over that. It's closer to 70 at the Olympics. The combination of that shortened distance with that speed means that softball batters have on average 20% less reaction time to hit a pitch than a baseball batter. When I was younger, my sister played fast pitch in high school and she wanted to learn how to pitch. So we'd go in the backyard and then she would make me catch for her. And at some point along the way, I decided that I was going to start windmilling it back at her. And it was fun. And I ended up buying a softball pitching magazine and I taught myself how to pitch better. And I play slow pitch now, but it's definitely fun to freak people out when you whiz a ball at their face from underhand because so many people are expecting it to come overhand at them. I throw harder underhand than I do overhand. Anyway, swimmers are hot.
I can't let the balls at my face go by without throwing balls at my face go by without saying something, but I'll leave it to Eric.
There goes your social life. That's what I have to say. But that is the most butch sentence that has ever happened on this podcast. Thank you, Curtis. I feel like, my God, I feel heterosexual just listening to this. So what a journey you've taken us on. I am curious, what country won the gold that was it Japan that won?
I think it was Japan, the 2 years that either
does
Japan or
surprise me.
Australia. Australia was also a competitive country.
Never count out those Australians. They always come from behind. All right. So anyway, we will be moving swimming into round 2. Next, it's another even split, this time between soccer, aka football to any cultured country, and distance running. Joelle, pace yourself as you make an argument for distance running. I will run around and score very few points as I argue for soccer. I'll go first. History of the sport. Men's soccer has been contested at every modern Summer Olympics since the second Olympiad in Paris in 1900. In 1932, was skipped over so as to prop up the then new FIFA World Cup, and we all know how well that turned out. Shockingly, women's soccer was not added until the 1996 Atlanta Games. That is wild. Uniqueness to the Olympics. Back when I was growing up, soccer was almost exclusively relegated to local parks and rec centers. You would never see it on TV in the United States. Within my lifetime, America has caught up with the rest of the world and its obsession with the sport, and it is increasingly popular here as a professional sport. All that said, it's a lot less novel than most of my other picks, and I'm fine if it leaves the bracket here. Memorable Olympic moments / Olympians. This is my primary argument for why it should advance. Football, I'm going to go ahead and call it that because that's what I have to do, has given us numerous memorable moments. I would compare it to the Winter Olympics hockey, which also often has incredibly tight matches with shocking endings. For Americans, this is especially true for the women's team, which in my opinion has minted way more celebrity athletes than American male soccer. I know that's not true for the internationals. I'm talking strictly American soccer players. Mia Hamm, Abby Wambach, Megan Rapinoe, Hope Solo all became household names in part because of the Olympics. A slew of international male soccer players are also megastars, but honestly, I don't know her. With that being said, Joelle, take it.
Soccer. The one thing I learned recently is that a lot of the men's teams are literally just the third rate players, like especially if it's a year where there's like World Cup stuff happening and other competitions happening, they just send the B, the C, the D team over to the Olympics because they don't care. Distance running. So I didn't know exactly what was included in distance running. I know the marathon because I wake up the last Sunday morning of the Olympics every year and start watching the marathon. I guess that's the men's one. I think the women's one happens on another day. So that also sucks, by the way. The men get the premiere, but whatever. I like watching it because it's the thing you watch while you're doing 7 other things in the morning, and you're excited when like the person that's been behind the whole time starts making their move and coming ahead, and then 2 hours later they're still like just behind the person in the front. And then at the last moment, what happens? It's not always that exciting. Sometimes that person in the front will be in the front for the next 4 hours. Actually, I don't know how long the marathon goes, but let's assume. My point being, it's actually exciting to watch, but also very passive. Like you can watch and check in, and I think that's kind of cool. It's like a way to like say goodbye to the Olympics in this very calm, exciting but calm way. I don't know how else to describe that. The other parts of distance running are the steeplechase, 3,000 meter, the 10,000 meter, and the 5,000 meter. I learned that those 3 were added in 1920. The marathon obviously goes all the way back to ancient times, but in the modern Olympics, it was in the first one. The women's competitions, by the way, were added literally 90 years later.
Yeah.
So the marathon was added in 84, 10,000 meter added in 88, 5,000 meter added in 96, and the steeplechase added in 2008. I don't get it. I will always hate that, by the way. I think there's something amazing about people that can just run long distances. Like you will always be amazed by the short distance sprints and Usain Bolts of it all. But I think the long game, it's all about pace. It's all about not going too fast. It's kind of like watching those biking road races and stuff too. I think that's similar kind of strategy. I was looking at who are like the most famous long distance runners, and a lot of them aren't names that are really household names, unfortunately, but I remembered Mo Farah. If you guys remember Great Britain's Mo Farah, he won gold in both 5,000 and 10,000 meters, 2 Olympics in a row. And that is truly amazing. Yeah, so with that in mind, these amazing competitions, I think, are worth keeping over soccer, which you can see the better players in other forums throughout the year.
Okay. Bob, where are you on this one? It's soccer versus distance running.
I think that I was initially with soccer. I think I'm switching to distance running. There was a lot of running excluded from this bracket, and as we talked about in our Patreon warm-up, and running feels so integral to the Olympics in and of itself. So I think soccer has certainly been around with the Olympics for a very long time, but I feel like soccer is prevalent everywhere. And I think some of these running events, some people only ever watch or see them through the Olympics. And I think that's unique and special and the reason to push them forward. And Jim Zadzik, one of our fellow panelists, his wife has scored against Abby Wambach in Rochester, New York, just as an FYI. So little connection to that soccer player. But
Eat that, Abby Wambach.
Exactly. Eat that. Anyway, so
I think that makes her basically an Olympian, right?
Basically,
correct.
Yes.
And so that's going to put me on distance running.
Okay. Curtis, where are you? Distance running or soccer?
I hate soccer. So.
And what is soccer if not distance running with a ball?
Right, except you're just running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. As Bob will attest, when we were in high school and had to play soccer in gym class, we would always stay way, way, way in the back. And when the ball would come towards us, we would run the other way.
I may have to edit this part out, but Eric and Bob in gym class was walking over to the rope. Did you climb that? Yeah, I climbed it. Did you climb it? Yep, I climbed it too.
Sure did.
Walk away from the rope.
There's a whole story about Eric and Bob in gym class. It was a harrowing tale. I'll go ahead and throw it to distance running as well, because, I mean, Bob made the point, soccer's been in the Olympics for a long time. The marathon was in the ancient Olympics. Like, it's the start of the Olympics. So I'm totally fine with it continuing. I don't understand why these people have to run everywhere. Like, they invented cars. Okay, so we are going to move along with distance running. One more unanimous victory in round 1 as diving left little splash as it broke the surface over wrestling. I will say I like wrestling. I definitely enjoy the singlets, but it's much harder for a viewer to appreciate the intricacies of that sport than it is for diving, where the slow-mo and the commentary commentating really makes it clear exactly what is going on. With wrestling, it's a lot of scrambling and men rubbing up against one another, and frankly, I can get that at home. Finally, in round one, it's one final split decision, this time between water polo and jumping. Joelle, get a running start before you leap to the offensive jumping. I will tread water as I argue for water polo. I'll go first. History. Water polo has been part of the Summer Olympics for men since the Second Games in Paris in 1900. Women's water polo was not added until 100 years later at the Sydney Games in 2000. Sidebar, the sexism inherent in these games is honestly shocking. In case you don't know what water polo is, think regular polo, but instead of riding horses on a field and using mallets to hit the ball, it's swimmers treading water and hurling a ball at a goal. It's an incredibly physically demanding sport. Uniqueness to the Olympics. Literally, where else are you going to watch water polo on TV? I'm dead serious. Memorable Olympic moments / Olympians. To my knowledge, there are no famous water polo playing Olympians. There are famous people who have played water polo, including Prince William, but not at the Olympics. My ancestral homeland of Hungary is the most winning country in the men's side, and given what a mess that country has become, we can be proud of that. In conclusion, Speedos and very fit men throwing balls. What's not to love? Joelle, talk to me about jumping.
So I learned a little bit more about jumping, all the three jumping sports in this process. I've always watched over the years, but I never really looked into it. So I was very excited to learn some stuff. So the high jump, the long jump, and the triple jump make up the three events in jumping. The high jump is that cool one where you're running, and then you make some weird movement with your upper back and body and legs and go back first over the thing. And I don't know how they do that.
It's called the Fosbury flop.
Yep. I was going to get there. So thank
Sorry.
you. You're okay. The long jump is exactly what it sounds like. How far can you go? And then you slide into the sand and then they measure that. And then the triple jump makes it look like you're stumbling, and it's wild and weird. And I love that one too. This is one of those sports that you've never watched. Why would I ever watch? I also would never watch discus throwing, but I do during the Olympics. But why would you ever watch jumping outside of this thing where you can actually root for a team as opposed to some random individual playing? I found out about the Fosbury flop during all this, and that was actually something that was so significant. And up until 1968, U.S. was dominant in the high jump, fully. They won most of the medals, the majority of the medals, 2, sometimes 3 every year or every Olympics. And then in 1968, Dick Fosbury, fantastic name, did the thing I just described, where he went high, up, backwards on the thing, and they called it the Fosbury flop. And after that moment, everyone learned how to do it in the next 4 years, and then suddenly the U.S. was not dominating in that sport anymore. So I think that's interesting. That's literally the evolution of that particular event, with one individual kind of really changing the game. I think in other sports that's a little bit more subtle, and this was really specific technique change. Is it the high jump? That was the high jump. We got Carl Lewis for the long jump. He was the most consecutive gold medals in the long jump from 1984 to 1996. That is 12 years that man was long jumping, and winning gold medals. So being the best at it for literally over a decade. One of the things they were noting is that for all three of these, those little 0.1 meters keep getting bigger and bigger every year. Someone keeps pushing that limit constantly. There's never like a stalling point in these. People keep pushing that, stronger, faster, higher, whatever that was, the Olympics motto. And yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it's fun to watch. It's so fascinating because you can't jump hurdles. I could never in a million years do any of these three things.
No.
I would break something for sure.
Absolutely not. No, I don't jump. I don't run. It's not for me. But thank you very much. Curtis, where are you? Are you on jumping or are you on water polo?
It's a challenging one. It's an apples and oranges comparison. I'm gonna go with jumping because of the Dick Fosbury of it all.
The Dick Fosbury over it all. Bob, where are you? Jumping or
where Eric is doing water polo because of the Dick. And
Thank you. I'm glad you set that up and then it spiked. Yes.
Volleyball references.
Callback.
I'm going to switch to jumping. I was on water polo. I'm going to switch to jumping because I think it encompasses more multiple events and multiple things, and I think that they should be represented. I was initially on water polo. One of the things that I didn't write down about my rubric, but is certainly weighing in my mind, is the men of it all when it comes to water polo. But they're mostly in the water, unlike some other events where they're out of the water and wearing the same sort of outfit. So that's why I'm going to switch off of water polo.
We'll get there.
I understand it, and I had the same concern. So that being said, we are jumping into round 2, and that's it for the end of round 1. We're going to take a quick break to figure out exactly how we can watch the games without paying NBC an arm and a leg. We'll be right back after these messages.
$5 can't buy you much these days. In the 90s, a Big Mac Extra Value Meal rang in at $4.59. Today, that same meal will cost you $7.89 and leave you filled with regret. You know who would never do that to you? The Great Pop Culture Debate. For just $5 a month, our Patreon supporters gain access to a treasure trove of unaired content, like those secret fries at the bottom of the bag. So if you're hungry for some delicious pop culture content, pass on the Big Mac and head to greatpopculturedebate.com to become a Patreon supporter today. Now I'm hungry.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Hear that? Yeah, that's the sound of you relaxing, because now you're managing diabetes with the Freestyle Libre 3 system. You get to know your glucose levels and where it's headed. Manage your diabetes with more confidence with the Freestyle Libre 3 system. Ready to learn more about the #1 prescribed CGM in the U.S.? Visit freestylelibre.us to learn more. Based on retail sales data for patients' last filled prescription by manufacturer. Refer to the FLAIR NL4 study published in BMJ Open Diabetes Research and Care 2019. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
And we are back for round 2 of our best summer Olympic sporting event debate. Before we get into the Elite 8, I want our panelists to share their social media, what else they're working on, and their personal favorite summer Olympic moment. Bob, can you start?
All right, thanks. So my socials are at DisnerdBob on pretty much any social platform that you can think of. And I'm not really working on much other than this podcast and making a beautiful program for you listeners out there. And when it comes to the Olympic moment that sticks out in my brain, it's not so much a moment, and I don't want this to come off mean, but it's going to come off mean. There was, back in the probably early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, there was a Kim Zmeskal, and she was a gymnast, and we always have these hopefuls, right? And we put so much pressure on these hopefuls, and she went, and I didn't get joy in this, but she went, and she just completely she completely just failed out of the entire situation, where I believe it might have been Carrie Strug even, was the person who ended up being the shining star from that Olympics. I'll have to ask Joelle if she knows the answer to that question. But it really goes back to, it wasn't necessarily an enjoyable moment. It's not intended to be mean, but it's just one of those things that sticks in the brains, where it's like, you started to realize and pull back the layers of the pressure that some of these gymnasts get put under when you think of people like Simone Biles today. So it's not necessarily like my favorite moment, but I think it's a very important moment that sticks out in my brain, of it's starting to see the cracks around sports like that. So.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk about more of that as we get into round 2 for sure, because we haven't really touched gymnastics yet. But thank you, Curtis. What are your socials? What are you working on? And what's your favorite Olympic moment?
You can find me on most things at Curtitch, Curtitch. I'm not at all active on anything, so you'll just be seeing, defunct old pictures of me. I don't work. No, I'm not working on anything else. Maybe auditioning for various game shows to scratch that itch. I don't want to say my event, my Olympic moment, because I want to share it later at the correct time, but I've always been a big fan of the Olympics. I really enjoy kind of just everything in general, and I promise I will share that, and you will know when.
Okay, he knows about pageantry, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, he literally knows about pageantry. He's won a pageant. All right, Joelle, talk to us about your socials, what else you're working on, and your favorite Olympic moment.
My socials are just non-existent, so I'll skip that. I am working on this podcast and the website for this podcast, which is coming soon. And actually, by the time you hear this, it will have been out for a while, and we're very excited. I'm also 1/3 of the Pocket Pod podcast, the Animal Crossing podcast, where we talk about animals and crossing with animals and video games, and sometimes the actual game Animal Crossing. My Olympic memories are abundant. I can't think of an Olympics that I didn't put myself right in front of the TV and watch every second of my favorite things, which we'll hear more about in the next few rounds of this debate. But one very distinct memory was it was for Purim, not Halloween. The timing makes more sense that way. I dressed as the Lillehammer Olympics for Purim, in which I had a sweatshirt that my grandfather got me. He got a really cool, just like Lillehammer Olympics with the circles and yada yada. And the circles, the Olympic rings. That was so dumb. And I pinned the names of all of my favorite competitors all over it. Johnny Mosley was my heart at that point, and he was right there above my heart. But all the other ones too, and whose names I do not remember right now, he was the one that definitely stood out to me for that Olympics. And that was a choice I made.
Elvis Costello, maybe.
What was
Did
that?
you enjoy Elvis Costello?
Elvis Costello was in the Olympics.
Wasn't he?
No, honey, Elvis Costello was a rock star.
Oh, who am I?
Elvis Stoico?
That's
Elvis
the one.
Stoico,
There we go.
yes,
Oh,
for
Elvis
sure.
Stoico. Joelle,
Yeah.
go back to Party City where you belong.
No, I love it. I think that's very charming. So thank you very much, Joelle. You can find me at Eric Rezsnyak on Instagram, or just message at Great Pop Culture Debate on Insta and TikTok, or at GPCD on Mastodon. But what you really need to do right now is sign up for our weekly newsletter, new every Monday at noon, that tells you about everything new in pop culture that week. Sign up by finding the link on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or via our link tree on any of our social media accounts. Also, we are noodling with the idea of a live watch party for the Paris closing ceremonies, which will be highly interactive. So make sure that you follow us on socials or subscribe to that newsletter to make sure that you're looped in on whatever we come up with. Most of my favorite Olympics moments are gymnastics related. Spoiler, you can totally see where this is going. So I would say either Mary Lou Retton's Perfect 10 at the 1984 Games. Yes, I'm old enough to remember that. On the other end of the spectrum, at the 1996 Atlanta Games, and God, this is terrible. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say this. At the 96 Atlanta Games, the Romanian team's complete implosion on the balance beam was the absolute height of schadenfreude. My brother and I recorded it on our VCR, and we rewound it and cackled over and over again, and I am still digging myself out of that karmic hole. Now, with that being said, we're going to move into round two to see which sporting event takes home GPCD bronze, which is nothing. Absolutely nothing, just to clarify. First, it's another unanimous victory for gymnastics, which bumped, set, and spiked volleyball. Next, the majority of the panel wants to make a leap of faith in favor of hurdles, but Bob remains swayed by the coxswain and wants to say farewell to rowing. Bob, take it away.
Yeah, ultimately I'm voting for hurdles in this matchup because I feel like it is the more Olympic sport and the core Olympic sport that should move forward. But I always really actually enjoy watching rowing, and it is something that I don't see every day and can't see every day. And it's something that I really only ever see during the Olympics. So I think it makes it unique and special to be able to see that. But we talk about, some of our mental rubrics around the attractive people that can sometimes participate in these events. And if you go onto YouTube and you do some rowing searching, you can probably find some of the podium scenes where there's always seems to be a rowing story where the men are standing on the podium getting their awards and their shorts are very, very tight.
And very white.
And it is very, yes, and it is very revealing. And it's like, that's fun to watch too. So, bye rowing.
Bye, rowing. We loved to see you. Yeah, I agree with that. So thank you very much. We still are going to move hurdles into round 3. Next, it's another unanimous victory for swimming, which meant that distance running was stopped in its tracks. Finally, in round 2, the majority of the panel has a pro diving platform, but Joelle thinks this club should remain jumpin'. Joelle, take us higher as you defend jumping. I will snap on my Speedo as I take the plunge for diving. I'll go first. So let's talk about the history of diving in the Olympics. It was actually added to the competition in the 3rd modern Olympiad, which took place in St. Louis in 1904. Back then, they had events not only for the skill of the diving, which was then known as fancy diving, which I love, petitioned to have divers decked out in ruffled collars and ball gowns going forward. Actually, on second thought, please do not do that. We need more nudity. But they also had events that were about how deep people could go in the water from diving, which they got rid of, I think, after that first time. Women's diving was added in fairly short succession at the 1912 Games in Stockholm. There are 8 different diving events in the modern Olympics, including platform and springboard and synchronized pairs. Uniqueness to the Olympics. Diving competitions certainly happen at the collegiate level, but have you ever watched diving on TV outside of the Olympics? Highly dubious. And yet I will sit through countless hours of diving every 4 years, men or women, and be completely hooked. It's both a highly visual sport as well as weirdly calming. It's also not for the faint of heart. The platform they dive off of is 30 plus feet over the pool. Let's talk about memorable moments in Olympians. There have been a few breakout diving stars. Tom Daley, of course, is a household name in both the UK and the United States. David Boudai is well known, as well as Matthew Mitchum. But probably the most famous diver of all time is American Greg Louganis. He first became famous in the 80s for winning gold in both the 84 and 88 games. Especially impressive considering that in 88, he hit the back of his head on the springboard, requiring several stitches, and still won the gold the next day. This event became even more newsworthy when Louganis disclosed years later that 6 months prior to competing in the 88 games, he had been diagnosed with HIV, which he did not disclose to anyone, including the doctors who treated his injury. Louganis was one of the first male athletes to publicly come out as gay in the mid-90s, not to mention HIV positive. He's been a trailblazer ever since. That being said, Joelle, talk to us about jumping.
Well, let me just bring this back up from sad news, but also Greg Louganis is amazing, so let's not be sad about that.
Exactly.
Jumping, I already talked about jumping, so I know I'm not going to sway all 3 of you because there's a distinct reason why diving is loved, and I won't fight you on it. You're not wrong.
I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about, but
especially the part afterwards with the chamois and they go dry off. I understand. Jumping is just really cool to watch too, and for some reason I just like it better. I think maybe diving, part of it is the actual fear of heights anxiety of watching those people get up there, and I'm literally picturing their deaths like as they approach the edge of the platform. And the bouncing one, the springboard. Oh, my heart literally stops. So maybe that's just a little too intense for me. But yeah, I'm pro jumping, and I know it's going. For those people that love jumping of all kinds, there are lots of songs about jumping, and Eric put together an awesome top 10 on our website that you should go check out.
Top 10 songs called Jump. Get into it. Curtis, where are you on this one? Is it jumping or is it diving?
Well, isn't jumping included in diving?
It is included in diving, yes.
So that's why that's not why. I think diving is a really cool sport, and it is that combination of athleticism and art. Again, I really appreciate those because the moves that you have to do are like very specific. You have to stop turning a certain way, and it takes so much effort, and it is a truly beautiful sport. Jumping is not a pretty sport. You flail, you throw yourself as hard as possible. So I think I'm going to give the edge to diving.
Bob, where are you on this one?
I am firmly on the divers. I mean, I'm picking diving. Sorry, I'm picking diving.
Yeah, emphasis on the firm there. I think that jumping is great, but diving, I mean, you talked about the athleticism involved in it, like the actual twerking these people do with their body, not the twerking, the torquing. Twerking. It's incredible. So we are diving into the final 4, and that's it. We're going to take a quick break to check on Bob Costas's pink eye. We'll be right back after these messages. These days, there's so much great TV. Sometimes you just don't have the time to tune in, but you're still itching to know what happened. Or maybe you watched the episode and just want to yell into the void and see if others agree. Well, if you aren't reading our episode recaps, you're only getting 3/4 of the story. The Great Pop Culture Debate publishes weekly recaps of some of your favorite television franchises, so you can stay up to date without even watching. Head over to greatpopculturedebate.com and make sure you never miss a moment.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
And we're back with the final four of our best Summer Olympics sporting event debate. At this point in the show, I always like to take a step back and see if we are where I thought we'd end up. It's gymnastics versus hurdles, diving versus swimming. I would say 3 out of 4 of these are pretty obvious. Hurdles is kind of a hurdles.
How did she get here?
Hurdles?
I don't know.
I don't know hurdles.
I don't know hurdles. But you know what? I'm glad that we have something from athletics in here because it is notably absent and it's a huge part of the game. So we're going to jump into these and go around the horn. First up, it's gymnastics versus hurdles. I want to start with Bob. Where are you?
I'm with gymnastics.
Curtis.
I was the queer little boy leaping and bounding through his house with a ribbon dancer made of toilet paper. I was the queer little boy who would see how many flips and twists he could make the remote controller do. I was the queer little boy who was told gymnastics was for fags and that he wasn't allowed to do that. So, for the shitty people who refuse to let my little star shine, this is for you. Gymnastics.
That's right. She's out there doing the most with her CVS receipt. Joelle, where are you?
Can I do the Curtis thing? I was the nerdy girl that had spreadsheets about gymnastics and figuring out who was going to get the gold medal before they actually won. I tracked everything for multiple years. I was obsessed with Olympics gymnastics, and hurdles is fine.
Hurdles is, she's lovely, beautiful gowns, but it's gymnastics. And so it's moving into the final two. Next, it's diving versus swimming. I'm going to start right in the middle, actually. Curtis, where are you? Diving versus swimming.
I should have looked ahead and prepared. Oh boy. I'm leaning swimming.
Okay.
If only because of Michael Phelps.
Okay. Bob, where are you on this one?
I'm not leaning swimming, maybe only because of Michael Phelps. So I am going to go with diving. It is, we can talk about it for sure, but we'll see what the votes look like. But it is to me, a far more interesting and more engaging and more dramatic sport to watch. There is certainly drama with swimming, like the drama, it's a race. So there's always a tension and a drama to it. But, gosh, that Russian judge in diving just won't budge, right? There's drama.
The judge won't budge. Joelle, where are you? Is it diving or is it swimming?
It is unquestionably swimming. I have facts I didn't even write down for us to get into. I have cried watching swimming.
Well, I think we should talk about it because I'll be honest, I would go with diving here. It would be split. And I agree with, first of all, swimming has created numerous huge names, right? Like the Phelps, but also Ryan Lochte, also not a great thing. But we have several other women swimmers who are also huge and have been going to the Olympics for years and still perform very well.
Katie Ledecky is probably who you're mentioning right now. She is a hometown hero right here, and she is amazing.
Absolutely. We had Ian Thorpe, the Torpedo. Most of the guys end up being kind of shits, if we're being honest, but the women seem great. I watch swimming. I will watch it every time. I will watch whatever it's on. I don't care. I do find it very dramatic. It sucks you in. You know, those last minute finishes, amazing. But to me, diving, it brings in the artistic element that I think we referenced before that I can't get enough of. The twisting, the turning, the tucking, and not the way drag queens tuck. All of it, I think, is like they put together these elaborate routines. And in swimming, you're just fucking go as fast as you can go and don't die. Like so to me, there's an art versus a physical component to it. But so I have Joelle and Curtis on team swimming.
Can I?
Yeah, please go on. This is the moment for swimming to have the arguments.
Okay, so first thing for me, diving is one part of gymnastics. Gymnastics gives you the tucking, the turning, the high jumps. Have you ever watched the burly men on the rings in gymnastics, and then they do like the flippity flips on the way down, and then they
Joelle,
land on
have
their
you
feet?
met me?
Yes, of course. Alexei Nemov was very important in my life. I understand how important that is for you too, I'm sure. Literally everything you just said about diving, you can say about gymnastics and more. So for swimming is a race, swimming is a speed, but there is also a beauty and a coordination to what they do. The underwater cameras have given us a lot more understanding of how just beautiful and like smooth they're. Like the butterfly is one of the best things to watch. The kick turns and you get to the end, and like how long they can stay underwater when they get out of the kick turns. The relays, I swear to God, those relays, my heart is racing watching those relays, because you're just waiting for some asshole to accidentally fall in the pool or jump in too quickly, and suddenly that team is completely out. I love an IM. I'm not the AIM, but the inter meet relay. What's it called? Inter something relay. It's the one that has the butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke, freestroke. I love watching that because you get to see how good certain people are at all 4 disciplines.
Swimming
And
Voltron, basically.
It's like, yeah, that's a good example. Yes. And then you got the distance ones. Katie Ledecky is incredible at distance swimming. I don't think I knew a single distance swimmer ever before she came around with her like 10,000 meters, and she's like 7 laps ahead of the competition. I think swimming is a tent pole for the Olympics. I think they make it, it's another hot ticket. We talked about beach volleyball earlier. Swimming is up there on those hot tickets. Obviously gymnastics is another one. Diving is cool. I like it, but again, I could get it out of gymnastics.
I mean, speaking of tent poles and the Olympics, Bob, you enjoy diving. Do you want to defend it?
Yeah, I don't know as though it's fair to say, well, I get all of this with gymnastics. That like, I'm trying to judge the sport against swimming, right? And to me, observing and watching diving is just far more interesting. It's more dramatic. It is more, to me, artistic to what Eric is saying. And I'm having a little bit of fun with this tonight. It's unforgivable what they did with the bathing suits for swimming.
Amen.
And gave them more fabric. Why? Who thought they needed more fabric?
Come on.
So
yeah.
I
Nobody
understand.
looks good in that length.
I am not going to be mad with whatever goes forward here, but I'm not going to be the one to budge.
I would also just, sorry, I have one more thing. I would just like to say that like having a race in the final 2, so we have like the artistic and we have the race. I understand that piece. Right? Diving feels too much like gymnastics for me personally.
And I got to tell you, Joelle, you got Miguel. You had me within like the first 30 seconds of your argument. I think you made really good, especially the underwater camp stuff, which, yes, we have that in diving as well, but it's not as useful as it is in swimming. So I am going to go ahead and switch my vote over to swimming, which gives us a final 2 of gymnastics versus swimming. I'm going to start with Bob. Where are you on this one?
So there's something about an Olympic sport, and this was something we had with diving, which just left. And I will tell you that the diving underwater cameras sometimes give you butt shots.
That's
true. Because the swimsuits come right off. But anyway, there's something about these Olympic sports, and ice skating has this well for the Olympics, is you watch this and you learn terms and phrases, you learn what the judges are looking at, and all of a sudden you become an expert as the viewer. And there's something very empowering and very exciting and fun about that. Aside from that, with gymnastics, and this is what I'm voting for, with gymnastics, I talked very early on about the drama, the storytelling. There is nothing in the Olympics that does this as well. Swimming absolutely does it, but there's the interaction of these teams with each other. There's that just very head-to-headness of it, and just that real reality series feel to watching and seeing the gymnastics, including the ribbon gymnastics, which is very fun and exciting to watch as well. I love a good choreography. I'm very much on the gymnastics side of things with this for all of those reasons. I think it is something that just overall has been embraced as part of the Olympics, is like people get excited. It is the thing to tune in for everyone.
Great. Curtis, is it gymnastics or is it swimming?
All I have to say is 2 words, 1 name, Carrie Strug. This was my moment. that I didn't want to talk about earlier. I remember feeling such an overwhelming sense of pride when she stuck that landing and they won the gold medal in the 1996 Olympics. I still get emotional when I watch that video. And for anyone who isn't familiar with that name or doesn't know what I'm talking about, I highly recommend searching for quick clips of that 1996 US women's gymnastics team. It was pure drama. It was iconic. I don't remember the names of some of my teachers from high school, but I still remember most of the names of the Magnificent Seven, which is what they were called. Shannon Miller, Dominique Moceanu, Dominique Dawes, Carrie Strug, Amy Chow, Amanda Borden, and JC Phelps. They were like the Avengers defeating the Russians and that dastardly Svetlana Khorkina, which was the name that I put for myself in logging in for this episode. Khorkina.
Here it was the whole time. I thought it was Chris Kattan. But
So you're voting for gymnastics.
Swimming. Yes. Gymnastics.
Joelle.
So can I talk about all my gymnastics things now too?
Please. This is a great time.
So first of all, Shannon Miller was absolutely my hero when I was little, and she was in 2 Olympics, and I was like, this girl. I loved her frizzy hair, which is now she's like totally straightened in.
Totally,
it's
yeah, it's total makeover, yeah.
Yeah, she's mommed her hair, and it's fine. The Karolis are a moment in the Olympics, and by a moment I mean like 3 decades of a moment. Nadia Comaneci and like that whole thing. Like talk about the Carrie Strug moment. Like Carrie Strug did the impossible vault, but Nadia Comaneci got that perfect 10, years earlier, and everyone was doing that from that point forward. And the Karolis literally defected from
Romania.
I think
that's where Comaneci
I think it's
was,
Romania. Yeah. And came to America and then just completely turned over the American gymnastics system. We won't talk about how dark ended and all that shit that happened with everything. But they did change things, and they did make the American team a powerhouse. And while there were a few years where they weren't doing great, the last 5 years has been so exciting as an American watching the Olympics. These women, whatever makeup of the Fab Five, the Final Five, the Fierce Five, they've had different versions of that. They have been incredible. I mean, we could talk about Simone Biles, but no one has to. She is a household name. Those are just a few names, but like men's gymnastics is also really cool and really fun to watch. That pommel horse breaks my brain every time. The spinning, all the spinning and the rings, and Paul Ham, and his twin brother Morgan Ham. We shouldn't forget those two with their very sweet voices. And then Alexei Nemov. I just don't need to say anymore. He's just the OG for me. But yeah, it's gymnastics. I love swimming. I love the hell out of swimming, but it's gymnastics.
So I'm going to give it a clean sweep for gymnastics, but I do want to talk a little bit. You mentioned the Ham brothers, but one of the main reasons I watch the Olympics is for the scorching hotness of the male gymnasts. I'm not even going to lie about this. We've really actually done, I think, a very good job of limiting the level of open lusting on this episode. And now we're just going to dispose of that. I'm just going to give you some names. Dana Levia, Jonathan Horton, Kevin Tan, Blaine Wilson, Jake Dalton, Sam Michaluk. From the 2024 trials team, Brody Malone, Yul Moldauer, Donald Wittenberg. Like, scorching hotness. These men have these big old arms. They got these big old thighs. They are throwing their bodies on that pommel horse, on those even bars. God, I love watching the parallel ballers. And also the moments. Like, I can remember, was it the Beijing Olympics with Li Shuaxuang on those rings, Bob? You know what I'm talking about. He was like the favorite to win the gold, and he's there, and it was a moment. Like, it happened. He's there propped up, and his arm slips and he falls through, and like there's a gasp from the entire arena, and the commentator says, "Oh no, Li Shuaxuang has fallen."
I'd forgotten about Li Shuaxuang until this
I'm so
moment.
glad I could bring it back to you. Like, these are the moments that you remember, and it's always gymnastics. For the Summer Olympics, for winters, it's something else, but for the Summer Olympics, it is gymnastics. In addition to super hot guys, we have these incredible women. You've already done a great job naming many of them, but it goes back to Mary Lou Retton, and with her first perfect 10. You've got You mentioned Shannon Miller, Carrie Strug, Sean Johnson, Gabby Douglas, Michaela Maroney, Carly Patterson, Nasty Lucan. These are women who made, right, the Michaela Maroney face. These are women who became household names. They are literal heroes to millions of young girls. And when we're gearing up for any Summer Olympics, what is the one sport that's on the cover of the magazines? It's either basketball, boo, tomato, tomato, or it's gymnastics, specifically women gymnastics. And it is completely justified. The incredible athleticism. These people are in unbelievable shape. The artistry that goes into it, like peak human condition. And ultimately, that's what I want in my Olympics. So there you have it, folks. Our pick for the best Summer Olympic sporting event is gymnastics. Do you agree? Do you think we should be disqualified for unsportsmanlike conduct? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or Mastodon. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you can hear about what new debates are coming soon, voting up in polls, and even decide which topics we tackle next. If you really enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to like and rate it on whatever platform you listen on. I want to say thank you to my panel. You are all my gold medal champions. And thank you for listening. If you loved what you heard, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get even more exclusive content and episodes a whole day early. We hope you have a good one. And remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion. Now let's go cruise that Olympic Village for some rough trade.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.